So I'm just going to next just kind of throw up on the screen some things that I've found, over the years. Um, they're friendly, they're open. They get, and some of you have really alluded to this when you talked about, you know, if I show care or concern with someone, they might be more open to talk to me about themselves, right? Because I'm demonstrating not just care, but also interest. I'm interested in, right? They're also very attentive, um, not just with people, but like I'll say it in the surrounding environment. It's like they kind of know the setup in a room. They know where it's quieter. They know where it's louder. They know where people kind of get to more quieter places if they want to have a one-on-one conversation, So they're very acute, I think, in that way. Uh, and someone also we've talked a little bit about active listening. So really, I mean, if any of you have engaged in that, it's a good skill to learn, because one, it goes right to the basis of networking. We're looking at gaining information, but to be good at that, you have to ask questions about the other person. And it could be whether they work, it could be what interests them, whatever it is that will engage them to talk. And also followed by like not summarize, but follow-up questions. A good example just to throw out there would be, for instance, someone asked me, where do you work? In DC, that seems to be the first thing that everyone wants to know is, where do you work? But it's a good starting point, right? And I could still start with that in networking, whether it was professional or just social networking. But what the follow-up question comes to that, because I can give you that answer in less than 5 seconds where I work. I'm more interested in particular, if I'm interested in working there or in that profession even, it's more like, oh, well, how do you like working there? What's it like to work there? What are the things that you really liked about it? Maybe the things that you're not so fond about, or how did you get engaged and why did you apply to work there? How did you get engaged in this profession? That's that follow-up questions that someone says, oh, they're continuing to ask me questions. That means they're still interested in what I have to say. That's the way that the speaker, interprets that. But the closer on that deal to make that full circle is summarizing back to the speaker in your language, not a verbatim or parroting about what they said, but you heard what they said and you got it and you understood it. You might add your own comment to it, of what they've shared with you, right? But the platform still starts with them. So this is that part, I think, that really transforms networking and people who are suspicious about people trying to network for them into a conversation. So networking, when I think of it, is not just in conversation, it's also in informational interviews, it's interviewing, right? So the more conversational, I've been very successful in interviews most of the time, is because I make it conversational. It's about like two people sharing, like if it was friends almost. That's why I come back to that theme, right? The other thing I know about networkers is their questions are showing their curiosity about the speaker, right? And they're also kind of vulnerable and courageous at the same time, because the definition of courage is like, it's not people who are just confident in what they do. It's more like they're not that confident and they put themselves out there. They take a little bit of risk, right? To see what people are going to say based on their speech or action. So they're a little bit vulnerable. They kind of stuck their necks out there a little bit. They're a little bit of risk takers. So that kind of comes hand in hand. And also they're storytellers lots of times. When that conversation switches back to you, where you're speaking, what's more engaging than a good storyteller, right? I mean, I've watched people do that as an interviewer and as an interviewee. It's like when they led me into a story, I started to get interested, you know? So if I had like 5 interviews before that, no one was telling me about who they are without any story, I kind of drift off a bit. So the good storytellers, and they're good, yeah, they're strategically, they know what kind of information they want to gain out of a conversation. That's their intention. They might get information they hadn't expected, and that's perfectly fine. And then the last one is they're versatile communicators using various mediums. Just to break that down, it's more like they're just good communicators, oral and written. They know how to text, they know how to email, they know how to use online platforms like Zoom and Meetup. Any of all those above things are good on the phone. They have those communication skills down. So the other thing I want to add before we leave this is don't kid yourselves and think there's that many of us who are natural networkers. There is that. There is an element. It's natural to me. It's easier for them to network. They just have the personality and behavior to go with that. But good networkers are always trying to get better. They don't just settle for that, right? It's like if I'm an athlete and I'm a kid and someone says, wow, you got a natural talent for hitting the baseball. It's like, yeah, well, if I really want to exceed, I develop that talent. And the same thing is true with networking. It's no different.